I want to talk to you today about the theater as an innovative space. I was really glad that Saul started the conference yesterday with the notion that innovation takes place in the space between people, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about today. I have no PowerPoint presentations, and in fact, it's disconcerting to look at this, so I'm going to put that down. And I have a couple of stories to get us into this as to why the theater is very important to me, and I'm going to lead us back to 2,500 years ago and take us into the rest of the 21st century, I hope, in less than 15 minutes. When I was 11 years old, I was the kind of kid that other kids didn't talk to. I was sort of chubby, and I had really big glasses, and I was incredibly effeminate, and some things don't change. And I spent most of my time reading fantasy novels and comic books. I had a 6th grade English teacher who said to me, "Why don't you play the lead role in this play?" I can't name the play in the theater, and I don't want you to speak the name out loud because it's considered bad luck to say the name of Shakespeare's Scottish lord. If you're confused by who that is, it starts with McDonald's and ends with death. And it's considered bad luck by theater people to say the title of that play in a theater unless you're working on it. So I won't say it. But I was playing the Scottish lord at the age of 11 in tights that made my legs look like little sausages. And my parents got me my first set of contact lenses for the occasion. So I got rid of the Coke bottle glasses, and I started wearing contacts. And I went out in front of the whole school, 1st through 6th grade, all 180 of them, and I played this part. And afterwards, I was walking off stage and down the hall, and 2 little 3rd grade girls came up to me and said, "Can we have your autograph?" And that was the first time anyone had really ever paid attention to me, and so I was sort of hooked after that. The other experience I want to tell you about is going with my parents to New York City when I was 12 years old. It was my first time to New York City, and they knew of now my new interest in the theater. And so my dad, who had a high school education and didn't really know what his son was doing, went to the TKTS booth at the time and said, what do you have playing? And they said Dracula was one of the things that he recognized. And it was a production with Frank Langella actually in it. I remember very vividly, I mean, to this day, it's like yesterday, going with my parents in the taxi ride to the theater, getting out, and the theater is beautiful and beautifully lit from the outside, and you walk into the lobby, and there were red curtains and gilt columns, and we sat down in these beautiful seats, and there was an Edward Gorey designed set on the stage, and Frank Langella came out, and he was fabulous, and he had his shirt off in the second act, and I was in heaven. It was exactly what I had always wanted, was the experience of this fantastical thing. And so that continues to live in me. That's how I got involved in the theater. I have become, over the years, interested in the theater as a democratic space. So I'm going to lead us back to 2,500 years ago to a very small town in the Peloponnesian Peninsula. It's called Athens. And at the time, it was about 65,000 people. It's 500 BC approximately. And it's the birthplace at that time of lots of things, but 2 that are important to me: the theater and democracy. And the theater at the time, if you've ever seen any of the giant ancient Greek theaters, they're very large auditoria that seat about 12,000 people. This room seats 282, just to give you an idea of that scale. 12,000 people would come to see a show, and the show would last for 3 days, the festival, right, the Dionysian festival. And we would come with our slaves and with our hetera, our hookers, and they would come, only women allowed in the theater, right? And we would all sit and we would eat and drink and binge and watch plays played out in front of us. and the plays were things like Oedipus Rex, don't kill your father and sleep with your mother, right? Which seems like a fairly self-evident thing to us. But you have to imagine, the ancient Greek society at the time is just barely post-tribal, right? They're negotiating what their society is and will be. They're also, one of the most remarkable things is, one of the earliest play texts that we still have in existence is Aeschylus's The Persians. What's The Persians about? It's about the Greeks' war with this other people, told from the point of view of the other people to the victorious Greeks. Now think about that. Imagine that. It's a post-tribal society. Would that we, in the 21st century American democracy, could be that broad-minded. But so part of what was so remarkable about that space is that they were negotiating who they were as a society in this theatrical space. Okay, let's leap forward. I'm not good at math. To the late 1500s. There's this other little tiny country in the northern Atlantic. It's called England. And they've had nearly 200 years of civil war. They have a woman on their throne, which is a horrifying thing if you're one of the English lords at the time. You know, I mean, women are good for one thing and one thing only. And we are negotiating our sense of national identity. What do we need? Well, the obvious answer is a playwright. Right, which sounds odd. You would think it must be some new technology that we would need. But in fact, what we need is the, once again, democratic space that is the theater to negotiate our sense of national identity. And if you look at Shakespeare's plays, Shakespeare is challenging how the English see themselves. He's challenging the notion of monarchy and the idea of the monarch being the ultimate extreme voice. He shows us lots and lots of flawed, fatally flawed monarchs. So he's questioning the system from within the system. We also have to think, though, about his theater. His theater probably sat about 300 to 400 people, much like this, except it goes up higher. It's outside. If we think about it, there was a platform like this one, only squared off on the sides, and around it stood people. It's midday, so they're all having their lunch, right? That's something we don't tend to remember because we have electric lights. But they're outside in the middle of the day, they're eating lunch, which is a very dangerous thing for actors because, you know, then they have food in their hands. And if the actors aren't very good or if they're slow, then they have projectiles. And so it's important to remember it's an active space. It is a space that requires the audience to talk back to the stage. And in fact, when Shakespeare's plays were played, they weren't played with the audience sitting silently, but very often in dialogue with the action on the stage. Okay, so, and you know, full disclosure, I imagine that a lot of what I've come up with around this is just a justification for having spent my entire adult life telling other adults to dress up and pretend to be other people. Okay, that's my job. And it's quite possible this is all a justification. So, the American theater has gotten to a place where in the last 20 years, we have entered into a commercial ticket transactional relationship with our audience. I feel that this is a dead end for the theater. That the only way that the theater, the American theater can revitalize itself and refine itself is by making the theater, this place, a community space. I was teaching my directing class this morning, and my students were telling me, they were telling me about parties that they go to where they are handed at the door earphones, right? And everyone tunes to the same frequency, and then they, you know, and you walk in and people are, and there's no music. And so imagine you walk in and see people responding to something but it's not a shared response, it's now an interior response. And I thought, that is so messed up. Who would do that? And then I realized, like 4 times a week, I go to the Gold's Gym in Pawtucket, and I get on the elliptical machine, which is a faux form of exercise, right? I mean, it's pretend exercise. I'm aware of my surroundings and the place other people in the gym and what they're wearing and what I'm wearing and how I look compared to them, right? And I'm wearing, when you're a gay man over 40, you're very aware of that. Let me just. And I'm wearing my iPod, and I'm watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer on TV with the closed caption. And I'm listening to my own music, and I'm fake exercising, and I'm watching the people around me, and I'm watching a cartoon program with closed caption. So I'm also, as much as I like to think of myself as not participating in this at all, I participate as fully as any of my 20-year-olds that tell me about the party with the earphones. Our society is getting more and more isolated. We go to work in our cars. We watch the television, which the television is an isolating experience par excellence, if you ask me. We sit with our iPods and our sunglasses on the train so that we don't have to talk or interact to anyone. We close ourselves further and further down. Democracy can't exist in that space. I'll just make that very bold statement. And again, this is all a justification for what I do, right? I spend a lot of time justifying what I do. The theater is a possibility for a democratic space. The theater is a possibility for the presentation of ideas in a room full of people who are shaped by those ideas. The television doesn't know that you exist. I will often say that you can be watching the television, get up to go to the bathroom, die on the bathroom floor. The television won't know. In fact, the television will still be playing when the EMTs arrive 3 days later, right? It is not aware of your presence. And so that is its weakness as a medium for ideas, right? It can only vomit the ideas at you. And you can't do anything to shout back. That's part of what contributes, in my mind, to the sense of isolation in our culture. The theater is a space where if we're lucky, you come, and ideas are presented, and then there's a conversation around those ideas. Now, that's a very dangerous thing to do, of course. If you present ideas and have people respond to them, then golly, they might actually respond. You know, I've had people say to me, but what if someone doesn't like it? Great. What if someone doesn't like it? What if someone gets furious about it? I'd much rather produce that response than the non-response to the work. Just as a quick example, the play that we're doing on this very stage, Chekhov's Cherry Orchard, is a piece about people who something is inevitable is about to happen to them, right? Their cherry orchard is going to be sold. And I've had audience members say to me after the show, I couldn't stand watching those people. They didn't do anything. Why didn't they do something? They knew what was happening. I had the experience last summer of going to see the Al Gore movie, An Inconvenient Truth. And afterwards I thought, you know what? I'm going to ride my bike to work. I'm going to be super green. I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to get active in green issues. And my bike is, for anyone who wants to know, sitting upstairs in my office right now. I did drive down once, but it rained, and then it was hard to go home in the rain. And I say to the people in my audience, global warming, in spite of what the government might want us to think, is a fact. And what are we doing? Like the people in the cherry orchard, we also are not able to do and act and respond. Hopefully, the fact of watching these people from 1904 Russia being incapable of doing anything will enliven conversation and debate. And so you've seen what we've done to our lobbies outside. For those of you who've been here before, it's hopefully a more welcoming and warm space to sit and talk. We'll open up a space out in the winter for coffee and drinks, which I always think helps conversation. We're having post-show talkbacks. We're having a magazine now that goes to all of the people who come to see our shows. We're enlivening our discussion and debate. Hopefully, this will have its ripple effect. And as we were saying, the space where innovation is possible is the space in between people. Thanks.